Good afternoon and welcome to the first reading taken from a book by my favourite author, Peter F. Hamilton. This is from Manhattan in Reverse, a collection of short stories, all written in a different universe. Here we go. This one is called, this is a short story called Foot Vote. I, Bradley Ethan Murray, pledge that starting from this day, the 1st of January 2010, and extending for a period of 2 years, I will hold open a wormhole to the planet New Suffolk in order that all decent people from this United Kingdom can freely travel through to build themselves a new life on a fresh world. I do this in the sad knowledge that our old country's leaders and institutions have failed us completely. Those who seek release from the oppression and terminal malaise which now afflict the United Kingdom are welcome to do so under the following strictures. 1. With citizenship comes responsibility. 2. The monoculture of New Suffolk will be derived from current English ethnicity. 3. Government will be a democratic republic. 4. It is the job of government to provide the following statutory services to the citizenship to be paid for through taxation. A. The enforcement of law and order consisting of a police force and independent judiciary. All citizens have the right to trial by jury for major crimes. B. A socialised health service delivered equally to all. No private hospitals or medical clinics will be permitted, with the exception of vanity medicine. C. Universal education to be provided from primary to higher levels. No private schools are permitted. Parents of primary and secondary school pupils are to be given a majority stake in governorship of the school, including its finances. All citizens have the right to be educated to their highest capability. D. Provision and maintenance of a basic civil infrastructure, including road, rail and domestic utilities. 5. It is not the job of government to interfere with and over-regulate the life of the individual citizen. Providing they do no harm to others or the state, citizens are free to do and say whatever they wish. 6. Citizens do not have the right to own or use weapons. First character, Jeanette. It was the day Gordon Brown was due to appear before the Iraq inquiry again. He'd been called back because of discrepancies in his previous evidence. Opposition politicians, those we still had left, interviewed on Radio 4's Today programme, were full of eager anticipation, taunting their opponent to come out and face allegations about military funding deficits full on, confident he would screw up. Over in Brussels, the EU Commission was drawing up plans to send in teams of German and French engineers to take over critical shutdown procedures in UK nuclear reactors from our rapidly declining number of power station technicians. While in Russia, Novgaz was talking about payment in advance for supplying us with gas this winter, and I'd forgotten to buy Frosties for Steve. Not muesli again, he spat with true contempt, which only 7-year-olds can muster. If only the civil service union leadership had that kind of determination when facing the latest round of abysmal Treasury budget cuts to compensate for the migration situation. It's good for you, I said, without engaging my brain. After 7 years, you'd think I'd know not to make that kind of tactical error with my own son. Mum, it's just dried pigeon crab, he jeered as I stopped pouring it into the bowl. Olivia, his little sister, started to giggle at the use of the NN word. At least she was spooning up her organic yogurt without fuss. Not nice, she chanted. What do you want then, I asked. McDonald's, big cheesy one. No! I know he only says it to annoy me, but the reflex is too strong to resist. And I'm the bad mother Yet again, maybe I shouldn't preach so hard. But then that's Colin speaking. How about toast? I pleaded as a compromise. Okay. I couldn't believe it was that easy. But he sat down at the table and waited with a smug look on his face while I put the granary bread in the toaster. God, he does so look like Colin these days. Is that why he's becoming more impossible? What's the prim? Olivia asked. Today had moved on from sniping at the Prime Minister to cover the demonstration at Stansted. Public responsibility movement, I said. Now please finish your breakfast. Daddy will be here soon. He'd better be. I put the toast down in front of Steve and he squirted too much liquid honey over it. I didn't chide. Both of them were suddenly silent and eating quickly, as if that would speed their father's arrival. I opened the flat back door in an attempt to let in some cooler air. Summer was so damn hot and dry this year. Here in Islington, the breeze coursed along the baking streets like gusts of desert air. Desert air that had been blown across a sewage plant. Pooey, Steve said, holding his nose as he munched down more toast. I had to admit the smell which drifted in wasn't good. Olivia crumbled her face in equal dismay. That's horrid, Mum. What is it? Someone hasn't tied up their bin bags properly, which was true enough. The pile of bags in the corner of Beauvoir Square was getting ridiculously big. As more bags were flung on top, so the ones at the bottom split open. The Sky News and News 24 programmes always showed them, with comparison footage of the 79 winter of discontent. When are they going to clear it? Steve asked. Once a fortnight, which was optimistic. Mass news media said that nearly 10% of the army had deserted. The remaining political bloggers were putting the figure a lot higher. What was left of our armed forces was now having to provide civic utility assistance squads, along with fire service cover, prison guard duties, engineering support to power stations, and a good percentage of the RAF was involved with the rollback from Afghanistan, getting the remaining ground troops out, much to the Americans' disgust. We'd be lucky if the pile was cleared every month. I'd seen a rat the size of a cat run across the square the other day. I always thought rodents that big were just urban legend. Why can't they take rubbish away like they used to? Olivia asked. Not enough people to do that anymore, darling. There's hundreds of people standing round the streets all day, she pointed out. It's scary. I don't like the park anymore. She was right in a way. It wasn't the lack of people, of course. It was money to pay them to work. The way sterling was collapsing while the rest of the world climbed out of the recession was chilling. What would happen when the true tax revenue figures for the last 6 months came in was anyone's guess. Officially, tax received by the Treasury had only fallen by 10% since that little shit Murray opened his racist, fascist, arseholing wormhole. Nobody believed that, but naturally the first thing the Treasury had reduced was local government funding, with Brown standing up in Westminster and telling the councils to cut back on wastage. What was left of the opposition parties had rocked with laughter when he said it. Who could blame them? That phrase has been a central government mantra for 50 years, whoever is in power. It never happens, of course. This time, however, things are different for all the wrong reasons. As a way to finally get the UK to sign on for the euro, the pound in Zimbabwe-style freefall couldn't be beaten. We desperately needed a currency that wasn't so susceptible to our traitors, except that suddenly France and Germany were blocking us from joining, saying that Greece and the Mediterranean countries needed to regain their pre-recession economic stability levels first. Bastards. For once Colin actually turned up on time. He did his silly little ring tune on the front door, and both kids shot off from the table screeching hellos. Do they do that when I turn up to his place to collect them? I think not. He came into the kitchen wearing a smart new sweatshirt and clean jeans, his curly brown hair neatly trimmed. I hate that old saying that men just get more handsome as they get older, but they do seem to preserve themselves well after 30. Colin hadn't put on a pound in the last 2 years. Well, not since he started jogging, visiting the gym on a regular basis again. I suppose that teenage bimbo he's shacked up with doesn't appreciate a sagging beer gut. Damn, Why do I always sound like a stereotype bitch? Colin scooped Olivia up under one arm and swung her around. Hiya, he called out to me. Seen my daughter anywhere? She was shrieking, Daddy, Daddy, as she was twirled about. Don't do that, I mumbled. She's just eaten. Okie dokie. He dropped her to the floor and collected a happy kiss from her. Come on then, he clapped his hands, hustling them along. Get ready, I'm leaving in 5, 4, 3. They both ran downstairs to collect their bags. How are you doing? He asked. Never better. I gave the kitchen table and its mess a weary look. The work surfaces were covered in junk too, and the sink was a cliche of unwashed pans. How about you? Still servicing the rich? His expression hardened. That way it always did when he had to speak slowly and carefully to explain the bleeding obvious to me. I have to work at the Bupa hospital now, as well as my NHS practice. It's the only way I can earn enough money after your lawyer took me to the cleaners in that sexist divorce court of yours. I almost opened my jaw in surprise. I was the one who always made the needling comments. He was Mr. Reasonable through everything. Oh, fine, sure, I said. I thought it would be my fault. He gave one of those smug little victory smiles. They used to annoy the hell out of me as well. What time do you want them back tomorrow? He asked. In the afternoon. Before 6? Okie dokie, no problem. Thanks. Are you taking them anywhere special? The reviews for Splat the Cat have been good. I'll take them to that this evening, if there isn't another power cut. As long as you don't take them for burgers. He rolled his eyes. I glanced out through the window, seeing his new navy blue BMW 4x4 parked on the pavement outside. The stupid thing was the size of an army tank. I couldn't see anyone sitting in the passenger seat. Is she coming with you today? Who's that then? Zoe. Ah, you remembered her name. I think I read it on her school report. As a matter of fact, yes, she is coming with us. She took the day off to help out. The kids do like her, you know. And you even find, if you ever find yourself someone, I won't kick up about them going out with him. Oh, well done, Colin. Another point scored off your sure an X, especially with that emphasis on ever. Aren't you the clever one? The kids charged back into the kitchen, hauling their overnight bags along the floor. Ready? Have a lovely time, I said, ever gracious. Colin's face and smile faltered. He hesitated, then leant forward and kissed me on the cheek. Nothing special, not a peace offering, just some platonic gesture I didn't understand. See you, he said. I was too surprised to answer. Then the door slammed shut, the kids were gone, the flat was silent. I had 15 minutes to make the bus. I was going on a protest for the first time in years, making my voice heard and my feelings known, doing exactly what Colin despised and ridiculed. God, it felt wonderful. 33. There will be no prisons. Convicted criminals will spend their sentence in isolated penal colonies working for the public good. 34. New Suffolk will use the imperial system of measurement for length, weight and volume. 35. Police are required to uphold the law and curtail antisocial behaviour. Police will not waste their time criminalising trivial offences. 36. Citizens are not entitled to unlimited legal funding. Citizens facing prosecution are entitled to have their defence fees paid for by public funding a total of 3 times during their lifetime. They may select which cases. 37. The intake of alcohol, nicotine and other mild narcotics is permitted. Citizens found endangering others when intoxicated, e.g. driving under the influence, will face a minimum sentence of 4 years in a penal colony. 38. New Suffolk laws will not be structured to support or encourage any type of compensation culture. 39. Any lawyer who has brought 3 failed cases of litigation judged to be frivolous is automatically sentenced to a minimum 5 years in a penal colony. Colin. The finance agency's solicitor was waiting on the doorstep, talking to Zoe, when I drove up in the front of the house. I'd met him twice before. He was from Belgium. Arrived here a month after the wormhole opened. "Who's that?" Steve asked as I started to manoeuvre the BMW up the gravel, backing it up to the horse box. "Bloke from the bank," I told him. "I've just got a few papers to sort out. Then we're off." At least the agency didn't stick it for a sale sign up on the house outside. That tended to earn you a brick, or worse, through the window these days. Zoe smiled and waved as I stopped just short of the horse box. "Wait in the car for me," I told the kids. I didn't want them to see the empty house. Last night we used sleeping bags on the bare carpet, zipped together. Very romantic. The solicitor shook my hand and produced a file of documents for me to sign. He glanced at the kids who were pressed up against the BMW's window, but didn't comment. I guess he'd seen it many times before. So he opened the garage door and picked up the first of the boxes stacked on the concrete floor. She carried it over to the rear of the BMW and put it in the boot. The solicitor wanted 5 signatures from me, and that was it. The house belonged to the agency. A 4-bedroom house with garage and a decent-sized garden in Enfield, along with all the contents. Sold for $320,000, maybe 2/3 of what I could have got last year. But that gave me enough to pay off the mortgage and leave me with $30,000 in equity, which the agency had advanced me. That's what they specialise in, one of many such businesses to spring up since January. A Franco-Dutch company who sell little bits of England to people who aren't going to be accepted on the other side of the wormhole. Heaven knows there are enough takers from overseas, mainly India and North Africa. Though for the life of me, I can't work out why they'd come here now. I bought the BMW on finance from the garage. My pension portfolio had been sold to another specialty agency based in Luxembourg. God bless our sneaky EU partners, giving me $25,000. That just left the credit cards. I'd applied for another 2. More than that, and the monitor programs would spot the new loan patterns, but they give me an extra 15 grand to spend over the last month. It had all gone into a community partnership I signed up for at www.newsuffolklife.co.uk. Most of the stuff was being shipped out in a convoy, with all the personal items we'd need crammed into the horse box. The website recommended using them. They could take a lot more weight than a caravan. The solicitor shook my head and said, "Good luck, monsieur." I handed him the keys, and that was it. Zoe had jammed the last box in the back of the BMW. There were just 4 suitcases left. I picked up 2 of them. She was giving the house a forlorn look. "We're doing the right thing," I told her. "I know." She produced a brave smile. "I just didn't expect it to be like this." Murray surprised all of us, didn't he? "Yeah, I grew up with a whole bunch of sci-fi shows and films. It's amazing how their vocabulary and images integrated with modern culture. They all had bloody great ships flying through space, captains sitting in their command chair and making life and death decisions, shooting lasers and missiles at bug-eyed monsters. Everybody knew that was how it would happen for real. Then Murray found a way to open his wormhole, and the little sod won't tell anyone how he does it. Not that I blame him. He's quite right. We'll only misuse the technology, we always do. It's just that this isn't the noble crossing of the void I expected. It feels almost like a betrayal of my beliefs." Zoe looked embarrassed. She's nothing like Jeanette. Makes out some piece of barely legal nurse totty. I'd pulled because she's blinded by the title of doctor in front of my name. In fact, she's training to be a midwife, which takes just as much dedication and intelligence as a doctor. I'm bloody lucky she even looks at a life wreckage like me. The fact that she'll take me on with a couple of kids in tow makes her extraordinary. "I meant the way this finally split the country," she said quietly. "Everyone always talked about the North-South divide and the class war and the distance between rich and poor, but it was just ideology. Politicians lobbing, spinning sound bites at each other. Murray went and made it physical." I put my arms round her. "He gave us the chance politicians always promise and never provide. God, can you believe I actually voted for Blair twice?" She grinned evilly. Wish you'd voted Tory. Stop putting words in my mouth. I gave her a quick kiss. Then we shoved the suitcases in on top of the boxes. Mind you, I still can't believe Gordon Brown won the election. The bloggers of Murray allowed Conservative voters from marginal constituencies to travel through first. That's such a typical internet bollocks conspiracy theory. Only 38% of the population bothered to vote, and they're all the ones who know they're not going through. The rest of us didn't bother. Why would we? That's how Brown won the election. Murray doesn't know who votes for which party. All he built was a wormhole, not this bloody surveillance state we wound up being oppressed by. And anyway, Murray doesn't personally organise the exodus. We have to do that ourselves. Take responsibility, just like the first article says. Gosh, scratch a doctor and he bleeds politics. After working for the NHS management for 15 years, what else am I ever likely to whinge about? She laughed, which was a lovely sight. By contrast, Steve and Olivia looked unusually solemn when we got into the 4x4, so we gave them a welcoming smile. Hi guys! Where are we going, Daddy? Olivia asked. I'm going to take you to see something. Something I hope you'll like. What? Can't explain, you have to see it. What's in the horse box? Steve asked. You don't like horses? Tent, I said. Big tent, actually. Food, solar panels, 4 windscreen laptops, 2 iPads. Cool! What kind of apps have you got? As many as I could download last week. Yeah. Can I use one? Maybe. What else? Olivia asked, excited. Some toys, lots of new clothes, books. What's it all for? Steve asked. You'll see. I put my hand on the ignition key and gave Zoe an apprehensive glance. This was such a huge step to be taking, and there didn't seem to be any defining moment, just a long sequence of covert events that had definitely led to this point in time. I didn't feel any guilt about bringing the kids with us. In fact, I'd be remiss as a father if I didn't. There was never going to be an opportunity like this again. I'm not stupid and naive enough to believe New Suffolk is going to be paradise, but it has the potential to be something better than this world. We're not going to evolve or progress here, not with so much history inertia shackling us to the past, and the worst politicians of any era running things across the globe. As for Jeanette, well, I'm afraid, as far as I'm concerned, she hasn't been a proper mother to the kids for years now. Let's go, Zoe said. We chose a long time ago. So I turned the ignition and pulled out the drive, the overloaded horse box rattling along behind. What's that ring? Steve asked suddenly. That's my boy, sharp and observant. This? Zoe held up her finger. It's an engagement ring, Olivia squeaked. Are you getting married? Yes, I said. It was the first thing we wanted to do on the other side. Does Mum know? Steve asked. No. 62. In order to prevent the mistakes of the old country being repeated on New Suffolk, no organised religions will be permitted. All citizens must acknowledge that the universe is a natural phenomenon. 63. In order to prevent the mistakes of the old country being repeated on New Suffolk, members of extremist political parties and undesirable organisations are banned from passing through the wormhole, as well as criminals and others I deem injurious to the public good. Examples of prohibited groups and professions include, but are not limited to, the following: A. Labour Party, B. Conservative Party, C. Liberal Democrat Party, D. Communist Party, E. British Nationalist Party, F. Socialist Alliance, G. Tabloid Journalist, H. European Union bureaucrats, I. Trade union officials, J. Corporate lawyers, K. Political lobbyists, L. Traffic wardens. Jeanette. Abby was waiting for me at Liverpool Street Station. It was a miracle I ever found her. The concourse was overrun by backpackers. I'm sure there wasn't one of them over 25, or maybe that's just the way it is when you're looking at young people from the wrong side of 35. And I certainly hadn't seen that much denim in one place since I went to the reading festival in the early 90s. Their backpacks were huge. I didn't even know they manufactured them that size. I gawped in astonishment at the youngsters jostled around me. Nearly all of them were couples, and everybody had a Union Jack patch sewn in on their clothes or backpack. I don't think 1 in 10 was speaking English.